course of the weeks does connect to slows in one way or the other, but since last week I did the third section of the student learning outcomes, the slows that we have beautifully printed up and put in all the rooms and showing in the halls, and it's something that certainly we are hopefully becoming more and more familiar with. The last one was to become a learned person. And again, the secular realm I think we all can understand, but the idea of being a learned person in the Torah realm. And a little bit connecting to not only a concept that Rabbi Ben Shushan spoke about yesterday, but also the end of the parsha. He spoke about the end of the parsha. I'd like to reference the end of the parsha as well. And Rashi tells us, I'm just not going to go through the math, but Rashi says, why is it that we get to know the exact time of Yishmael's death and how old he was when he died? What is the significance of being told that Yishmael was 137 years old when he died? It isn't exactly like he's one of our major names in Jewish history. So what exactly is the point of him telling us, of the Torah telling us? And Rashi says something very, very amazing. Again, you can look at it from many angles and certainly speak about this a lot. But he says that really it wasn't about Yishmael that we were being told how old Yishmael was. It wasn't about his particular life that was significant. It was significant because when Yishmael died, you can figure out Yakov's life, and I think Rabbi Ben Shushan alluded to this. But specifically, Rashi says, and the math is discussed in a different parsha, but specifically the point is that when you look at Yishmael's death date of 137 years, and you calculate Yaakov's life, you realize there are 14 years missing. There's a gap of 14 years when you calculate Yaakov running away from Esav, going to Lavan, spending 20 years in Lavan's house is a 14-year gap. And the Torah is telling us and illuminating us with a critical point that before Yaakov went to Lavan, knowing fully that he's entering into the home of a very, very crooked person. A person who's not extremely pious, not extremely holy, if anything, just the opposite. And he recognized, and this is Yaakov Avinu at a ripe age. This is not Yaakov Avinu a kid. Yaakov Avinu, the great Yaakov Avinu, already was on a level of a prophet. When he left Eretz Yisrael, the angels came and escorted him. Yaakov Avinu spent 14 years. That 14-year gap, which seemingly was unexplained, Rashi and the Midrashim tell us he spent 14 years in Yeshiva Shem Ve'ever. 14 years doing something which seems to be so unnecessary. He's Yaakov Avinu. What does he need to spend 14 years in a yeshiva for? Rabbi Rashi is telling us that when you analyze this is something so fundamental to life, and it certainly gets into the whole essence of Talmud Torah. I can really answer Rabbi Ben Shushan's point very simply, and obviously there's a lot to talk about. But it's very simple. Because if a person leaves Valley Torah or any other high school and goes on to yeshiva, the emotions that he talked about does not happen. The drop in spirituality does not occur. The drop in spirituality occurs, and you can be 18 years old, you can be 37 years old, you can be 60 years old, you can be Rabbi Yochanan and Kohen Gadol, 80 years old, who left Torah at 80. He was a Kohen Gadol for so many years. And yet at 80 years old, he left Torah. How does that happen? How does somebody so strong and so spiritual and so connected leave Torah? Because what Rashi is telling us, Rabbi and Yaakov understood this, when you face challenges, when you meet up with life, when you are put in different situations where you are going to be tested, and certainly he knew that Lavan was going to test him. He understood that in order for me to be successful, I need Torah. I need not only to learn every single day to be connected to Torah on a regular basis, but I need to prepare myself. And Yaakov Avinu said 14 years is what I need. Why 14? Why that number 14? That I cannot tell you. It happens to be that certain yeshivas have programs that last about 14 years. I'm not sure if that's related to that. I don't know. But certainly when you speak to people who learn a lot of years, the number 14 is a number that sort of resonates even in today's world of people spending 14 years preparing themselves for life and to become the Talmid Chacham that they feel they need to be, not necessarily to teach Klal Yisrael Torah, which would be certainly a good reason. But we need years of learning just to be able to survive, just to be able to breathe. The mashal that we remember in elementary school about the fish out of water, or Rekiva telling us that a Jew without Torah is literally like a fish out of water. And you can't breathe. That's fundamental to who we are. There's not a nice fable or a nice story. That's who we are. That's how Kadosh Baruch Hu made us. Brasi Yitzhar, Brasi Torah Tava, one of the most fundamental concepts in Musar. The Gemara tells us, I created a Yetzirah and I created an antidote. And we are all struggling with the Yetzirah. I've got people, I don't want to get into too much detail, but I'm sitting here inspired almost on a daily basis by hearing people who are struggling with different issues that we're all struggling with. You walk out in the street, you struggle. You drive by billboards, you struggle. You put on a computer, you struggle. And that there are people who are mamish fighting those struggles every single day and trying to be successful and not giving in. How do you do it? And certainly it requires tremendous willpower. It requires a tremendous amount of Yiras Shamayim to want to do the right thing in that relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I don't want to cave in. I don't want to mess up. I don't want to do Averis. But Rabbi say, at the end of the day, there is no chance for a Jew to be successful in that endeavor of defeating his Yetzirah without Torah. It cannot happen. And anybody who thinks it can is literally, he's mamish on the edge of what a horrible story that was. You probably saw it along the way. Nebuch, those people in Yosemite. That's why when we go to Yosemite, when we tell you instructions about what to do, what a horrible thing that a couple is taking a selfie in Yosemite. And mamish, they want to get a better picture. They both fell over and they to their death. Horrible, horrible story. But that's life, Rabbi Say. Life is literally walking on that precipice. And our ability to stay close and stay on firm ground, and not to fall over, is dependent uniquely on Torah. There's no question in the world that we cannot manage. And if you stop with this Rashi and you stop and you learn and notice the interesting language that Rashi says, he didn't just learn Torah in Shem V'Aver. He served Shem V'Aver. He was mishamish them. If you look at people throughout their lives, a person can be 30, 40, 50. You ever see videos of Rav Chaim Kanievsky? Videos of Gedolei Olam, the people in the 70s and 80s and 90s. They should live in Adnei Veshem Shani, should live and be well. And you see people there, 50, 60 years old, they're serving them. They're literally whatever you need. Rav Chaim, what do you need? They're there being mishamish them. We had this chus of having a Rebbe Zatzal lived till his late 80s. And there were people who were so-called the secretaries. Rabbi Yishal has one of them. He was one of a Valley Torah graduate who's now the head of Or Chanoch, Chavetz Chaim, Los Angeles, on Pico. He had this chussav for years to be Mishamish Rabbi Henach Leibowitz. Not just learn from him, but to be around him, just to be in his presence, just to learn from his subtleties, his derech eretz, how he conducts himself, how he speaks, his approach, his hashkafa to life. This is what Yaakov Avinu felt I need. He's Yaakov Avinu. He's Mechir Shabbat. He's an incredible giant of a person. You need Torah. You need to hang out in Yeshiva Shem V'Aver. You need to Meshamish Talmidei Chachamim. Aren't you strong enough? No, we're never strong enough. Never strong enough. No matter how much electricity you put into a freezer and you freeze it down to the coldest temperature possible, when you pull that plug, it's going to defrost. Might take a little bit longer, but it's going to defrost. You pull the plug, you pull the electrical current to your whole spiritual connection. It's not going to happen. Because it's just not going to stay. It's not about trying to find any other way. Which is why Rabbi say, in any situation you find a person who has left Torah, who has walked away from the Beis Medrash, who is no longer connected spiritually to learning, and I don't mean 8 hours, 9 hours a day. You can leave yeshiva and never leave Torah. People have to leave the yeshiva and get their jobs, but there are people who work every single day and are lawyers and doctors and computer analysts, and when you name it, whatever they do. But their anchor is Torah. They never left the base medrash because they know that 1 hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours a day that they can stay connected. That's their lifeblood. That's their spiritual ability to stay focused and to do the right thing. So guys who spend years in high school, I never know people who spend 10 years in yeshiva. But if they walk out of yeshiva, and when you walk out of yeshiva, you literally walk out of the yeshiva. And you don't stay connected to Torah, it's going to happen. It does not work. It's the way we're constituted, the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu made us. Brasi Yetzer, Brasi Torah Tavlin. There's no other way. That's why you could be a Yaakov Avinu. You could be a Yaakov Avinu, and you need Yeshiva Shem Vever. You need 14 years. What an incredible amount of time. And he had so much to do. He had so much important things to see. What he needed to build Klal Yisrael. What are you doing, Yaakov, spending 14 years when you got to marry a Rachel, you got to marry a Leah, you have to build a Shiftei Kod. This is what you do? And yes, Yaakov calculated, I need to be Yaakov Avinu. I need my Torah. I need my preparation. I need my fuel for life. And therefore the question is it's a simple question. Obviously we have to think about it and analyze it. And make sure that we are connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu properly. And that's why to have this opportunity to learn with somebody with an incredible insight, incredible ability to connect to kids is fantastic. But Rabbi said, but we need to know this fundamental point. It's an ongoing process. You can be inspired up to you can feel HaKadosh Baruch Hu in your bones. And you feel like your mamish and Shemayim, you're the highest madrega possible. Yochanan Kohen Gadol was in a very high madrega. He walked it every single year to Kodesh Kodashim and he came out alive. What does that make Yochanan Kohen Gadol? It makes him somebody who can literally walk into the holiest place and survive. That means he was at a very high level. The minute he sort of unplugged the electrical juices, somehow he maybe relaxed a little bit. He calmed down a little bit. Okay, I don't have to keep the pressure on. It struck me that somebody told me they were in the ambulance. I think Rav Moshe Feinstein Zatzal passed away in an ambulance. Somebody told me that somebody was with him in his last words of his life. Man who lived into his 90s, the Gadol Hadar, the Paisik Hadar, credible individual. What were his last words of his life? And somebody told me his last words were, "Ichav nishmer koyach." I have no more strength. I found those words to be very illuminating. Ichav nishmer koyach, I have no more strength. That means that Rav Moshe Feinstein, in his latest years, to the last breath that he had, it was his koyach, it was his energy, it was his pursuit of spirituality. He just could not stop pushing. He knew we had to keep fighting and pushing to the very last day. There's no time. We can take a vacation, but not spiritually. We can disconnect, but not spiritually. And Ramesh was saying that if I don't have that ability to sort of fight and keep going and push myself to become a better person every single day than the day before, then that's it. That's my life is over. That's what life represents. The minute you take I've had that. Rabbi, thank you so much. You prepared me so well. 8 years of elementary school, 4 years of high school. Now I'm going to go on to do other things. Now it's time where I can put the Svarim and the Torah in the back burners, and maybe I'll get back to it in 4, 5, 6, 10, 15, 20 years. But right now, you prepared me well. And those are the most frightening words, Rabbi, you can ever hear from a person. You're leaving Torah. You're leaving the pursuit of Talmud Torah, which is the very lifeblood of our ability to breathe. Do you think you have a spiritual breath left in you if you're going to close that book? And as was said yesterday, you can learn different things. Your lifeblood does not have to be Gemara. It's a great way to have a lifeblood, but it doesn't have to be Gemara. There are people who become involved and tremendously proficient in Chumash. Some people love halacha. Some people love Agadah. Some people love different aspects of Torah. Many aspects of Torah. There is something for everyone, as he said yesterday. But we cannot for a second think that a Jew can survive. So you want to know? Again, this is not the only answer. Maybe there are many other answers, but this is the most definitive and absolute answer that exists throughout Jewish history. When you see a Jew walking away from Torah, feeling disconnected from the pursuit of Talmud Torah, to be an educated Jew and an ongoing educated Jew, where the process never stops, where my commitment to learn every single day is an absolute, non-negotiable commitment. You see people here in the morning every morning. You see thousands, millions of Jews throughout America, thousands of Jews throughout Los Angeles, every morning or every night walking with their art scrolls or their Gemaras to Daf Yomi. Because the beauty of Daf Yomi is the consistency that every single day you're going to a shir, every single day you're going to be learning Torah. And every single day you're going to be pushing yourself to understand God's Word. Because it's not just an intellectual pursuit, Rabbi Say. It's a spiritual endeavor that completely changes who we are. Every year I share the words with you of the great Mashkiach who passed away some years ago, Rav Brevda. Rav Brevda was in this room, and he spoke to the Beis Medrash. We had a Beis Medrash years ago, and he spoke to the Beis Medrash boys, young men between 18 and 21. And he said that he shared with us the words of Rabbi Eli Apian, who gave his shmuz to his yeshiva when he was in yeshiva with Rabbi Eli Apian in England. And he said that when they heard the shmuz from Rabbi Eli Apian, they could not sleep that night when they heard these incredible words. And he said Rabbi Eli Apian did not say any big chedushim. He simply said over the words of Reb Chaim Volozhin in his classic work, the Nefesh HaChaim. Reb Chaim Volozhin, a student of the Gra, one of the great Talmidim of the Gra, a man who was 800 years out of his time. You could take him back 800 years and he'd fit right with the Ramban and the Rashba. He'd be right there with Rishonim way out over anybody else of his generation. He was a unique person. This was his Talmud Muvak. And Nefesh Chaim writes, and Rav Brevda Zatzal said that the words were so powerful. Now you're hearing it third generation. So I won't come to Rav Brevda, but to share at least the thought of what he expressed and what Rabbi Eli Apian expressed, which is rooted right in the words of Reb Chaim Volozhin, that a Jew in a little town, in a yeshiva somewhere in Slobodka or in Telz or in Minsk or wherever it might be, in some small town, and he has taken on a commitment to learn Torah before he goes to sleep, which is an incredible, powerful commitment. 5 minutes before you go to sleep, to open up a sefer and learn something that interests you. And this young man who's learning in yeshiva decided the last Rosh Hashanah, the last Yom Kippur, he took on this commitment. Before I go to sleep, 5 minutes of Torah before I go to sleep. And he went to a wedding, and he's coming home, and he's so tired, and he's so he just plotzes into bed. He's about to fall asleep, and all of a sudden, he remembers, ooh, I made that commitment 5 minutes every night before I go to sleep. Oh, but I'm so tired, and this pillow feels so good. And Reb Chaim Volozhin says that little moment when that person is agonizing about should he wake up and rekindle the light and open up that sefer and learn for 5 minutes, should he or shouldn't he, should he or shouldn't he, seems like a very, very isolated little position in time. And what impact does that have on anybody else in the world? Says Reb Chaim Volozhin, 500 miles away in Berlin, there's a woman who was rushed to the hospital ready to give birth. And everything was exciting. The father, the husband is very, very much anticipating being a father soon. Kid gets rushed to the mother gets rushed to the delivery room. And while everything seems fine, the doctor comes out and says, we're having serious complications. I'm not sure if wife's going to make it. I'm not sure if the baby's going to make it. And this father was anticipating such excitement and such simcha to have his first child. Everything gets thrown asunder. Everything now gets in turmoil. And he's walking back and forth. He doesn't know what to do with himself. Says Reb Chaim Volozhin, these two totally disparate moments in time, maybe simultaneous, but 500 miles away. What's the connection? He says we have just no idea of the power of Torah. Not only does it transform us, it transforms the world. Says the Mesilas Yesharim, every time we learn Torah, every time a Jew grows, literally, we're creating worlds that we can't even see. And he says that young man in that little town, in that yeshiva, who's battling with his Yetzer Hara, do I open the light, do I not open the light? And he decides in that moment, that split-second moment, he says, you know what, I made a commitment, I'm learning Torah. And he puts a light on. And he learns his 5 minutes of Mesilas Yesharim, or 5 minutes of Hilchos Brachos, or 5 minutes of Gemara, whatever it was. Or going over the Sedra for the week, he was being Mavis Sedra, whatever he was doing. He learned for those 5 minutes. Says Reb Chaim Volozhin, says Reb Eli Yapayan to his students that Reb Brevda heard, and now I'm sharing that thought with you. That fact, it's not just a thought, it's a fact. It's a fact laid down for us by Reb Chaim Volozhin, which is an absolute truth. That when he learned those 5 minutes, the spiritual power of that learning gets literally transported automatically in some kind of laser beam to Berlin. And the husband and the doctor comes out and he says, I don't know what happened, but God is shining on you because the bleeding stopped. And your wife is fine. And you're the proud father of a baby boy. And he'll never know. He will never know that father. And that mother and that baby will never know what transpired just now. What made the difference? We have stories. I'm learning with Mr. Zachariah Michael every single day. He comes proudly every single day, and he's telling me he went to the hospital. He has his father. In fact, you remember when Mr. Reamer spoke? It was last year. Alan Reamer spoke about his father, and the story about his father in the Holocaust, the incredible story. His father right now is fighting for his life in the hospital, and he's a walking miracle. They can't explain what's going on. This man, he said he should have gone weeks ago, and the Hatzalah came and they revived him, and it just doesn't make sense. In the hospital too, and things that completely fell apart are healing. The man is over 90 years old. He's a Holocaust survivor. The doctors wrote him off, and there happened to be some doctors. He said that the doctors are amazing people. He told me he should be so proud. They're Valley Torah graduates who are doctors in St. Joseph Hospital, and they're getting such chizuk from seeing the little miracles of God in front of their eyes, inexplicable miracles. So to us, they're inexplicable. To us, yes, they're nisim, but do we know these nisim are actually maybe instigated by something that we can do down here on earth? Some small action, especially of Talmud Torah, because Talmud Torah is the most powerful vehicle. It is supernatural. It changes the world. And it changes us. So he says, Reb Chaim Volozhin explains that person after 120 years who fought the Yetzer Hara that night, who put the light on, who learned his 5 minutes to continue his commitment to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that I'm going to learn every night 5 minutes before I go to sleep. He's going to go up to Shemayim and they're going to play This Is Your Life. The stream's going to come down and they're going to play his whole life of all his mitzvos and all his chusim and all the things that he did in his lifetime. And it's all going to be great, Bez Hashem. And all of a sudden he's going to see Jews in Berlin making Kiddush, keeping Shabbos, and he's going to say, I love the video. It looks great, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Bezdin Shamayla, can you take a time out for a second? I don't know those people. You probably got some video, overlaid and, mixed up with somebody else, because that's not me. I never stepped foot in Berlin. I don't know those people. And then this is the Eilu Me'emes. It's a world of truth. I got to be truthful. I had no shaykhis. No connection to anything that I'm looking at over here. And the Bezdin Shamayla will explain to him, you don't get it. You bet that's your life. You bet that's your schus. That whole family and all the children and grandchildren that ultimately resulted because of that birth that happened when it was literally hanging by a thread. And your 5 minutes created such power in this world that it saved that woman's life. And allowed that baby to be born, who now himself is a grandfather with who knows how many grandchildren. All that is your schus, it's your Torah that made that happen. That's who we are, Rabbi Yisai. You can't change the reality. An incredible schus that 1 in whatever number we are, that we were born Jewish. We were born not just Jewish. It's not just a definitive statement about who we are as people. It's a fact that we are, in a sense, so gifted by having a relation with Torah that cannot be explained in any rational terms. We are completely irrational from everything about us. Our existence is irrational. Our existence is supernatural. But we need to know one thing: at the center of it all is that final point that we write on that wall, to be a person steeped in Torah, with Torah knowledge, not just because he spent 4 years in a school, but those 4 years in the school hopefully enlightened him, together with whatever he learned from his community and his family, of course, to the absolute clarity that we don't have a chance in life without Torah. And we can't manage for a second. And when we walk away, if that's a concept, I don't care how inspired a guy was when he was in high school or the Beis Medrash in Kailul, he can have smicha, he can be a massive Talmid Chacham. If he walks away from that Beis Medrash, he doesn't have a chance. And I say, when you walk away from the Beis Medrash, it means I've left Torah behind. I don't have that umbilical cord every single day to stay true to my roots and to who I am. That's who we are, Rabbi Yisrael. That's Klal Yisrael. That's why Yaakov Avinu had to spend those 14 years in Shem Ve'aver, because he understood how he's going to survive. You've got to give yourself a chance, and you give yourself a chance by steeping yourself in Torah. That's why Eretz Yisrael is so critical. That's why an ongoing commitment to Torah is so critical. That's who we are. No other way to change the reality. That's God made, he's the designer, he put the manual together, and that's the manual. So Be'ez Hashem, let's take this incredible lesson to heart. The Torah did it, I guess maybe the Torah did it in its roundabout way to sort of have us calculate it so it can hit us, so we can put some energy into calculating why is it so important to know that Yishmael was 137 when he died. That's why it's so important. It tells us that Yaakov Avinu needed to spend 14 years in Yeshiva Shem Ve'aver. That's who we need to be. People committed on going to Talmud Torah. Be'ez Hashem, we can do that. We can truly fulfill our mandate. Make sure we can be the best people we can be, and that's Chus B'Zocha Be'ez Hashem to be as the Mashiach Meher.
Stay in your seats. Please stay in your seats quietly for one more minute.